Can you hear me now? Testing? Okay, somebody can hear me. Some people can hear me. Argit, can you hear me? Um, just gonna I have no idea I have no idea why, Argit, what are you smiling at?
Okay, I finally got it to work. I'm so sorry.
Uh,
It's just Monday all around. Very Monday.
yeah.
We're fine.
I mean, from my end, my computer defaulted to a microphone that doesn't exist. Uh,
Ah,
but, it's very confusing when it started working for chat, but not you.
yep. No, because again, today it's my day. Name it. Whatever it is, name it. It will go wrong for me because you know what? Screw me today. That's it.
Hey, everybody, we're having a rough night.
But we're good. Good.
So there was a suggestion, before the show started. Blythe said, "I think there should be loading screen music." I said there absolutely should. Any royalty-free recommendations? And Ran Out of Cake says both Pretzel Rocks and Epidemic Sound offer DMCA clear playlists across a lot of genres with a free
Mhm.
tier. Thank you. That is
I
a
will link
website,
you.
not a recommendation. I still don't want to have to go and pick something.
There is, if you have Spotify, I do have a playlist um, saved already with DMCA free music, but there's two other things I can link you to also afterwards.
Yeah, I just want one track.
One
Um,
track?
yeah,
That's easy too.
yeah, just one thing that'll work as decent like pre-stream audio. Um, But yeah, we've got a lot of news tonight. Um, and I am going to pretty much dive right into it.
Oh, I just saw your message too. So, like, basically, in trying to troubleshoot my stupid tech stuff, I didn't even see your message till just now.
Hmm.
Okay.
TikTok's global security chief to step down. Roland Cloutier to stay with the company. TikTok's global security officer Roland Cloutier is stepping down from his role but will stay with the company, according to a memo on TikTok's website. Cloutier, who's based in Florida, said his move followed recent changes to the security teams at the video sharing app, which is owned by China's ByteDance and is facing growing scrutiny from U.S. regulators about the use of personal data. With our recent announcement about data management changes in the US, it's time for me to transition from my role as Global Chief Security Officer into a strategic advisory role focusing on the business impact of security and trust programs, working directly with CEO Xiao, ByteDance VP of Technology Ding Kun, and other senior leaders, Cloutier wrote in the memo. Cloutier was brought in 2 years ago to help TikTok handle traditional cybersecurity issues as well as data security issues unique to TikTok due to its Chinese ownership. However, TikTok has been reshuffling its global security team and moving China-specific security issues, including ring-fencing it from ByteDance, to more localized teams. It it recently announced a dedicated U.S. data security team, known as USDS, as a gatekeeper for U.S. user information, minimizing China's access to data. The company is discussing a structure under which the team would operate autonomously and not be under TikTok's control or supervision, Reuters previously reported. TikTok, whose leadership is based in the United States and Singapore, is considering rolling out similar data security teams in other regions, including the EU, according to a source. The company hired Cloutier from payroll processing company Automated Data Processing in 2020. TikTok has faced increasing questions from U.S. senators about the security of data of American users, and some want the Federal Trade Commission to investigate. TikTok told lawmakers earlier this month that it is working on the final agreement with the Biden administration and would fully safeguard user data and U.S. national security interests. So, I talked a little bit with Cecilia about this article last week, or I think it wasn't this article, but it was about this topic, um, and her read on it is just that it this guy was the guy who was there and who had this job during all of the bad press. So it will look better for the company if he leaves. Um, so sidestepping into a consulting position means he basically keeps his job while losing his job so that they can put somebody else in that position. And Cecilia's bet is that in like 6 months to a year, that consultantship will end, and there will be no reason for TikTok to advertise that as a termination because it's a consultant, and ceasing to pay a consultant is not firing someone. But the big story that we missed, because I was getting ready to go to Paris. Leaked audio from 80 internal TikTok meetings shows that US user data has been repeatedly accessed from China. For years, TikTok has responded to data privacy concerns by promising that information gathered about users in the United States is stored in the United States rather than China, where ByteDance, the video platform's parent company, is located. But according to leaked audio from more than 80 internal TikTok meetings, China-based employees of ByteDance have repeatedly accessed non-public data about U.S. TikTok users, exactly the type of behavior that inspired former President Donald Trump to threaten to ban the app in the United States. The recordings, which were reviewed by BuzzFeed News, contain 14 statements from 9 different TikTok employees indicating that engineers in China had access to U.S. data between September 2021 and January 2022 at the very least. Despite a TikTok executive's sworn testimony in October 2021 Senate hearing that a world-renowned U.S.-based security team decides who gets the access to this data, 9 statements by 8 different employees describe situations where U.S. employees had to turn to their colleagues in China to determine how U.S. user data was flowing. U.S. staff did not have permission or knowledge of how to access the data on their own, according to the tapes. Now, the first very frustrating thing about this article is that they say that they've got 80 tapes on which there are 14 statements. So at least 66 of those tapes do not have a relevant quote on them. That is just shitty journalism. This is still really bad. 14 is a lot of evidence. But like, would have been better if they said, we have leaked audio. We have leaked audio from 14 meetings that corroborate this claim from a leak of over 80 files. But yeah, this is TikTok like explicitly not doing the thing they claimed that they had been doing.
Mm-hmm.
It is also worth noting, just to address the like standing xenophobia on this issue, that ByteDance employees having access to data is not the same thing as the Chinese government having access to data.
It's also, I'd be very curious to see like the actual text of it too, because it's my understanding that our data to help mitigate these privacy concerns too is actually stored in like Singapore.
Mm.
So I'm still interested anyway.
Everything is seen in China, said a member of TikTok's Trust and Safety Department in a September 2021 meeting. In another September meeting, a director referred to one Beijing-based engineer as a master admin who has access to everything. While many employees introduce themselves by name and title in the recordings, BuzzFeed News is not naming anyone to protect their privacy. The recordings range from small group meetings with company leaders and consultants to policy all-hands presentations and are corroborated by screenshots and other documents, providing a vast amount of evidence to corroborate prior reports of China-based employees accessing U.S. user data. Their contents showed the data was accessed far more frequently and recently than previously reported, painting a rich picture of the challenges the world's most popular social media app has faced in attempting to disentangle its U.S. operations from those of its parent company in Beijing. Ultimately, the tapes suggest that the company may have misled lawmakers, its users, and the public by downplaying that data stored in the U.S. could still be accessed by employees in China. So that's like the big thing is this is a permissions issue, and permissions are complicated, and
Very.
reworking the permissions for an entire corporation, huge challenge. TikTok did explicitly lie about how far along they were in that process and what the implications of it were. Or if not explicitly lie, because they said the data was stored in the US, that doesn't entail a claim that it cannot be accessed from China, but presenting the data is stored in the US as a response to the question, can this data be accessed from China? They knew what they were implying. In response to an exhaustive list of examples and questions about data access, TikTok spokesperson Maureen Shanahan responded with a short statement. We know we're among the most scrutinized platforms from a security standpoint, and we aim to remove any doubt about the security of US user data. That's why we hire experts in their field, continuously work to validate our security standards, and bring in reputable, independent third parties to test our defenses. ByteDance did not provide additional comment. In 2019, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States began investigating the national security implications of TikTok's collection of American data, and in 2020, then-President Donald Trump threatened to ban the app entirely over concerns that the Chinese government could use ByteDance to amass dossiers of personal information about U.S. TikTok users. TikTok's, quote, data collection threatens to allow the Chinese Communist Party access to Americans' personal and proprietary information, Trump wrote in his executive order. TikTok has said it has never shared user data with the Chinese government and would not do so if asked. Story says, isn't surprising that they can see TikTok user data. That is expected that employees could see things, but why would they lie? Like, what's the subtext or implication? Well, they were combating an actively hostile government in the U.S., so simply being in the process and not being as far along, and not being like that far along, is could have been optically not good enough to save the company from being banned in the United States. Also, it does look. It's the worst thing is not that it was possible for Chinese employees to access American user data. The worst thing is that American employees who needed access to that user data needed to turn to admins in China, which suggests that the structure put in place to store American user data in America was never built to manage American user data in America.
It could also just be that they're still in process of divorcing that information on the back end, which that does make sense, but
yeah, and
I'm
that
still
is a
confused
process
about
that, realistically looking at how tech companies work and what a big challenge that is, and what a mess TikTok is.
Mm-hmm.
That is a project we could reasonably expect to take them a solid decade. That's not going to be good enough for the optics of the question.
Yeah.
Most of the recorded meetings focus on TikTok's response to these concerns. The company is currently attempting to redirect its pipes so that certain protected data can no longer flow out of the United States and into China, an effort known internally as Project Texas. In the recordings, the vast majority of situations where China-based staff had access to U.S. data were in service of Project Texas's aim to halt this data access. Oh, that's interesting. In the recordings, the vast majority of situations where China-based staff accessed U.S. user data were in service of Project Texas's aim to halt this data access. So it sounds from that sentence like what BuzzFeed has is a bunch of recordings of meetings in which Chinese pen testers checked to see whether Project Texas was working.
That's what it sounds like to me too.
Project Texas is key to a contract that TikTok is currently negotiating with cloud services provider Oracle and CFIUS. Under a CFIUS agreement, TikTok would hold U.S. users' protected private information like phone numbers and birthdays exclusively at a data center managed by Oracle in Texas, hence the project name. This data would only be accessible by specific U.S.-based TikTok employees. What what data counts as protected is still being negotiated, but the recordings indicate that all public data, including users' public profiles and everything they post, will not be included. Disclosure: in a previous life, I held policy positions at Facebook and Spotify. Oracle did not respond to a request for comment. CFIUS declined to comment. Shortly before, sorry?
Shocking. I'm being a little sarcastic. Also, I don't think they explained it in the article, but CFIUS is apparently the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States.
They did not explain that in the article.
I needed to know immediately. So.
Shortly before the publication of this story, TikTok published a blog post announcing that it has changed the default storage location of US user data and that today 100% of US user traffic is being routed to the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. We still use our US and Singapore data centers for backup, but as we continue our work, we expect to delete US users' private data from our own data centers and fully pivot to Oracle Cloud servers located in the US. Lawmakers fear that the Chinese government will be able to get its hands on American data through ByteDance is rooted in the reality that Chinese companies are subject to the whims of the authoritarian Chinese Communist Party, which has been cracking down on its homegrown tech giants over the last year. The risk is that the government could force ByteDance to collect and turn over information as a form of, quote, data espionage. There is, however, another concern, that the soft power of the Chinese government could impact how ByteDance executives direct their American counterparts to adjust the levers of TikTok's powerful For You algorithm, which recommends videos to its more than 1 billion users. Senator Ted Cruz, for instance, has called TikTok, quote, a Trojan horse the Chinese Communist Party can use to influence what Americans see, hear, and ultimately think. Project Texas's narrow focus on the security of a specific slice of U.S. user data, much of which the Chinese government could simply buy from data brokers if it so chose, does not address fears that China, through ByteDance, could use TikTok to influence Americans' commercial, cultural, or political behavior. Yeah, that amount of control, believing that ByteDance or TikTok has that amount of control over what the algorithm does, is a fully incompetent read.
Yeah. This is one of those pieces of this article again too that I'm the whiplash of the dynamic of, well, the Chinese government could potentially get their hands on a lot of the user data information, but the American government has systems in place that they could make those same requests for information. Are they just assuming that ByteDance/TikTok itself is just going to roll over that much more easily for the Chinese government versus the US government? Like that part I get a little confused on.
Yeah, it's really starting to sound in this article like there is no story here, and that this entire article is built on xenophobia.
Like the more we get into it, especially now that we're apparently just finally getting into the heart of the conversation here. We've read this article, I don't even know how many times before. This is the exact same article that we've been reading since like 2020, since Trump and all them were, or maybe even 2019 when Trump and all them was first like, oh, hey, like the Chinese shouldn't have our data through TikTok specifically. And like, forget all of these other potential issues out there. Just focus on TikTok evil. I understand the concern. I just still am like, okay, they're still working on the same process, gosh, the progress for the same request to ensure that US information is stored in the US versus elsewhere in the world is still basically in that same state of we're working on it as it has been for about 2 years now.
And particularly the fact that the quotes were Chinese employees checking whether Project Texas was working means that this article is evidence that they are doing the thing they said they were doing.
Yeah.
TikTok has said in blog posts and public statements that it physically stores all data about its US users in the US with backups in Singapore. This does mitigate some risks. The company says this data is not subject to Chinese law, but it does not address the fact that China-based employees can access the data, experts say. Physical location does not matter if the data can still be accessed from China, Adam Segal, director of the Digital and Cyberspace Policy Program at the Council on Foreign Relations, told BuzzFeed News in an email. He said the concern would be that data would still end up in the hands of Chinese intelligence if people in China were still accessing. TikTok itself acknowledged its access issue in a 2020 blog post. Our goal is to minimize data access across regions so that, for example, employees in the APAC region, including China, would have very minimal access to user data from the EU and US, TikTok's Chief Information Security Officer Roland Cloutier wrote. Project Texas, once completed, is supposed to close this loophole for a limited amount of data. But many of the audio recordings reveal the challenges employees have faced in finding and closing the channels allowing data to flow from the US to China. Again, these recordings are documentation of the fact that they are doing this job. Project Texas, when it's finished, will make this problem go away. But, damningly, while Project Texas is unfinished, we have found that the problem has not completely gone away when we explicitly check to look for ways to fix it. "14 of the leaked recordings include conversations with or about a team of consultants from Booz Allen Hamilton. One of the consultants told TikTok employees that they were brought on in February 2021 to help TikTok manage the Project Texas data migration, and a TikTok director told other TikTok employees that the consultants reported to TikTok's chief of U.S. data defense. In recordings, the consultants investigate how data flows through TikTok and ByteDance's internal tools, including those used for data visualization, content moderation, and monetization. In September 2021, one consultant said to colleagues, "I feel like with these tools, there's some backdoor to access user data in almost all of them, which is exhausting." Again, this is saying we did our due diligence and have discovered that this problem is hard, not we're not fixing the problem.
Exactly.
They are being very scaremongery about all of these quotes, which support the position TikTok is working really hard on Project Texas. When asked for comment, Booz Allen Hamilton spokesperson Jessica Clank said something about the above information was incorrect, but refused to specify what it was. "At this point, I'm not in a position to further discuss or even confirm or deny our relationship with any client, but I can tell you that what you're asserting here is inaccurate." What a fucking wild way to paraphrase that.
This turned into a rabbit hole I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, like Cecilia and I skimmed this article and we were like, oh shit, we have to talk about this. But like, damn, on a close read, it's nothing.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking, yeah, this feels like I would be suspicious of BuzzFeed breaking a story, any story. Additionally, 4 of the recordings contain conversations in which employees responsible for certain internal tools could not figure out what part of those tools did. Oh no, a tech company's tools are complicated. In a November 2020 meeting, a data scientist explained that for many tools, nobody has really documented like a how-to. Putting the and like in the quote. And there are items within the tools that nobody knows what they're for. Like, yeah, that's how tech works. The complexity of the company's internal systems and how they enable data to flow between the US and China underscores the challenges facing the United States Technical Services team, a new dedicated engineering team TikTok has begun hiring as part of Project Texas. To demonstrate the USTS team's independence from Chinese-owned ByteDance, one team member told a colleague in January that not everyone can join the team. Chinese nationals are not actually allowed to join, he said. A former employee who spoke to BuzzFeed News on condition of anonymity for fear of retribution corroborated this account. When asked for comment on this practice, TikTok did not respond.
So, again, on that previous point, it's like, in our security revamp, we've realized that we desperately need a project manager around to ensure that, like, that instructions for future use are needed, which I love that piece of information, not because of this article, but because we have always said to ourselves, man, it feels like TikTok keeps just reinventing the wheel and slapping new crap onto the old crap without verifying how anything works together. And unwittingly, the one kind of shining gem from this article, other than all of the data security stuff, is confirmation of that.
Mhm.
There is so much code behind this app. It's ridiculous. And the other thing that, and again, I'm sorry for like tangenting, just one more moment about that specific portion of it. I don't know how many other people sometimes switch between the app and the website. Your algorithm on the website is drastically different than what it is in the app. If you've never tried it, go try it. And just again, know that there are basically two TikToks running. It feels to me, at least, that there's two TikToks running parallel to each other, the web version and the app version. So they have so
Mm.
much going on. No wonder they're struggling and taking forever to do all of this.
Yeah, and like the complexity of the company's internal systems and how they enable data to flow between the US and China underscores the challenges facing, etc. What this is saying is that TikTok, an app run by a Chinese company, operated based on the assumption that the Chinese company would be involved in running it before the US government said that they couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they built the app
Mm-hmm.
doing that. It would be weird if it weren't every function.
And it's like, and like, I get that. I especially get that for like 20 years old tech. But again, this is one of those things where it's like tech companies have been around long enough that there is precedent that everybody says document, document, document before you start doing the thing, whatever the thing is. And the fact that yet again, they're not doing that. Who is it's one of those progress for the sake of progress situations. And it's like, if you just stopped and waited for a beat and wrote it all down,
Mm.
drives me crazy. Anyway,
I'm DMing Cecilia in the background. I just said it's literally just
okay.
scaremongering. Every detail is actually really strong evidence that TikTok is doing a great job.
Yeah.
But while the mandate of this team is to control and manage access to sensitive US data, the USTS team reports to ByteDance leadership in China, as BuzzFeed News reported in March. In a recorded January 2022 meeting, a data scientist told a colleague, "I get my instructions from the main office in Beijing." I wonder if that's a data scientist whose
Um,
job is to be on the China side pen testing Project Texas.
and then I was going to ask, they didn't define what USTS was again either, did
No,
they?
they did. The USTS is,
Okay.
where was it? The United States Technical Services Team.
Okay.
Music Mike 77 says, "I feel like you could find too many startups that skip documentation. This probably isn't just TikTok." It's not just that it probably
Oh,
isn't just TikTok. It's that it's definitely every single tech company.
yes.
Every like it is truly an unhinged behavior to correctly document your code. Like that is not something that like people who
Yeah.
have like a healthy work-life balance do.
Because I understand it gets boring, especially for the guys that like are out there wanting to like create stuff. Like you get so focused on the creation, like who cares how you did it? You made it. It's kind of like asking an artist, like, oh, could you like make could you backtrack all of the changes that you made to this piece of artwork? How did you get here? Uh, like it's kind of like that, but at the same time, it is also tech. So you can't really do that because it's being consumed by multiple people. You can't assume that you're always going to be around to fix it.
Yeah, you
Um,
okay. You say you can't. The truth is you shouldn't, but everyone
correct,
does.
correct. Um,
Because it would be like the job of programmer is not well supported enough in
mhm.
any part of our economy for them to be able to do the amount of work that would go into documentation and keep their jobs.
It's like again, there it sort of because again, like from from my experiences, for that startup that I worked for, there wasn't really anybody around to be like, hey, by the way, like show your work, so that somebody else, like let's say you die tomorrow, right? Like somebody needs to be able to come back to your code and suss it out without spending twice as much time trying to figure out what you had written and then what to do with it going forward. So it's like, again, that kind of discussion has been around forever, but until you get like actual project managers into teams and management to like oversee that kind of stuff to make sure that that's at least some of it, at least the bare bones of it.
Yeah,
So it's like, again, where are they at in this stage? That's what I'm curious about.
and I think that at the very least, we can reasonably conclude that TikTok is not at the point where they have gone through the spaghetti code that Musical.ly was built on, and everything that TikTok has added to it, and at this point, fully documented it. I don't think they've done that.
Was it Professor Casey keeps talking about the technical debt stuff? So they're trying to both make progress while maintaining and resolve their technical debt issues. And again,
yeah, and it's actually
as
like
rich as they are, they're not going to do all of it at the same time. They
like
can't.
this severance of data flow between the U.S. and China, actually really great opportunity for them to like redesign all of those systems in a consistent and well-documented way. Because like TikTok's a big company now, they can afford to have project managers on the job and like people who can like review the code and say, hey, you didn't write down what this does.
Yep.
But like truly, like as an individual like person, like just you have to be obsessed with documentation to voluntarily document your code without somebody consistently making you. Like you have to internalize like archival values. This article is so fucking long.
I was just going to say, like, I'm not saying we should definitely stop this, but like, oh my God. Every time I think it's
done, an hour to fill. And like so far, we've learned a lot of things that TikTok is doing really well. So that as long as we take the time to do the reading comprehension, this is a great article detailing all of the things that TikTok is doing an awesome job of.
Yeah.
TikTok's goal for Project Texas is that any data stored on the Oracle server will be secure and not accessible from China or elsewhere globally. However, according to 7 recordings between September 2021 and January 2022, the lawyer leading TikTok's negotiations with CFIUS and others clarified that this only includes data that is not publicly available on the app, like content that is in draft form, set to private, or information like users' phone numbers and birthdays that is collected but not visible on their profiles. A Booz Allen Hamilton consultant told old colleagues in September 2021 that what exactly will count as protected data that will be stored in the Oracle server was still being ironed out from a legal perspective. Oh no, terrifyingly, China can still access the things that they could access by downloading TikTok.
Yeah. Again, with my experiences with like moderating the internet, they say explicitly in the terms of service and the rules and guidelines, anything, and that means anything you submit, post, transmit, etc. on this website is subject to moderation. So I don't like that they were like, oh, well, if it's a draft or a private, you submitted it to the app. It's in the terms of service. Like there's nothing like.
I do want to note there's a distant implication here that might be nothing, but would be really cool. Only includes data that is not publicly available on the app, like content that is in draft form. Suggests that maybe part of Project Texas is storing drafts on the cloud rather than on device, which would be great because then people could change phones.
Yes. When I found out that like drafts, like if you delete the app or if you lose your phone or whatever, that all of your drafts are gone, like I don't store drafts for anything anymore. I never have more than maybe 2 at a time.
I like never use drafts.
Like, yeah. I almost always like if I'm posting something, like it's coming immediately, like so it's never good. But yeah, no, and and again, I'm so sorry for always staying so focused on the moderation standpoint of it, but like people don't understand that if you post a draft to your device, or if you post a video to private, you have still posted it to the app and it is still subject to moderation. So like, I don't like the way that they phrased this, putting that together along with things like phone numbers and birth dates, because those should be two category, like completely separate things. Because like, anyway, I'm done ranting.
In a recorded 2022 meeting, the company's head of product and user operations announced with a laugh that unique IDs, UIDs, would not be considered protected information under the CFIUS agreement. The conversation continues to evolve, they said. We recently found out that UIDs are things we can have access to, which changes the game a bit.
Oh, I think it answers my question in the next paragraph. Please continue.
What the product and user operations head meant by UID under this circumstance is not clear. It could refer to an identifier for a specific TikTok account or for a device. Device UIDs are typically used by ad tech companies like Google and Facebook to link your behavior across apps, making them nearly as important an identifier as your name.
So wouldn't it be like PII, personally identifiable information, an acronym that is used commonly?
It would be PII if this were PII, but it's not PII. It is the internal code attached to each individual TikTok account.
Hmm.
This is essentially the fucking
Oh,
product and user operations department is allowed to access the computer's understanding of what the names of each TikTok account are.
that's right. Okay. Yeah, because we don't actually get to see user ID numbers because it. Anyway.
Right. It's like on Discord how you can get like a translation of your username into just like a long string of characters.
And developer mode.
What? Yeah. Story says that doesn't seem like sensitive info. You are right. That's not sensitive info. That is obviously, transparently not sensitive info. That is the info that allows you to say this account is this account over time. It's just the info that says, like, if you change your username, we still know that this is your account. And yeah, the head of product and user operations department should be able to access that. As TikTok continues to negotiate over what data will be considered protected, the recordings make it clear that a lot of US user data, including public videos, bios, and comments, will not be exclusively stored on the Oracle server. Oh my god, the public videos, bios, and comments might not be stored in secret servers. Instead, this data will be stored in the company's Virginia data center, which may remain accessible from ByteDance's Beijing offices even once Project Texas is complete. That means ByteDance's China-based employees could continue to have access to insights about what American TikTok users are interested in, from cat videos to political beliefs. No, it doesn't. None of those pieces of data are users' watch history or analytics. Public videos, bios, and comments are not the same thing as watch
Mm-mm.
trends. They're not the same
Mm-mm.
thing as like a tag cloud associated with an individual account. They're not the same thing as a list of your likes.
Yeah.
It also appears that Oracle is giving TikTok considerable flexibility in how its data center will be run. In a recorded conversation from late January, TikTok's head of global cyber and data defense made clear that while Oracle would be providing the physical data storage space for Project Texas, TikTok would control the software layer. It's almost incorrect to call it the Oracle Cloud because they're just giving us the bare metal, and then we're building our VMs, virtual machines, on top of it. Oracle did not respond to a request for comment. My guy, what do you think servers are?
I know. I that whole paragraph just makes me want to scream. What year is it? Like even for a person who doesn't really understand technology, I still am that whole paragraph basically I am at a loss. Yeah, can be spelled backwards and let me clutch my pearls. Okay, you can clutch them.
Meanwhile,
Oh my
TikTok
God, is that a
security
notification that
lawyer.
we're reaching the end of the article? Holy shit.
What?
Excuse me.
What
I
did you
think
say?
that dot at the end of the paragraph
Yeah,
now on the bottom of the screen.
yeah.
We're almost done. Wow.
Meanwhile, TikTok's national security lawyer hopes the negotiation will have ripple effects in the tech industry and beyond. There is going to be a national security law that comes down from the Commerce Department, they said, referencing the Biden administration's development of regulations to govern apps that could be exploited by foreign adversaries to steal or otherwise obtain data.
Okay. I
That is not
They can do
hopes
it
the
already.
negotiation will have ripple effects. That is conscious of the fact that this is having that this already had political implications.
Yeah.
Stories. Thank you so much. Steal or otherwise obtain data. Steal or, get it legally. Foreign adversaries downloading TikTok to look at people's profiles.
Yeah, and then they're just but they'll just find all of the bot accounts, so then they just see all these like random pictures like scraped from the internet. They're not even real people.
The law will be promulgated and codified in probably the next 18 months, I would say, and that's how every Chinese company is going to be able to operate in the US, the lawyer said. They're writing that like the lawyer is saying that they've won a big victory by making the US legal system friendly to Chinese companies, when they're talking about a new law
Mm-mm.
that restricts Chinese companies.
Yeah.
Like, there is no possible way in which the presence of a law could be less restrictive than the absence of any law on that topic.
And this is also just so frustrating for me too, because it's like I know TikTok and China, etc. But there was that one small piece up at the top that talked about like the greater Asian Pacific area, which includes, like Russia and all of that too. But when it comes to these kinds of things, like again, it's so focused on exclusively China, like that is the only place we should be concerned about. And the that's so incorrect.
TikTok's efforts with Project Texas may ultimately pay off for the company. Yeah, no shit, they're doing a great job. According to Graham Webster, a research scholar at Stanford's Cyber Policy Center, if TikTok commits to being transparent and high integrity, and China based employees won't be able to access user data, then from a data security perspective, it should be possible to convince good faith skeptics that they have done enough. The question is whether the company will go far enough and whether skeptical authorities are truly open to being convinced, he told BuzzFeed News, calling them the fuck out.
Yes.
The details of the arrangement between CFIUS, TikTok, and Oracle were under discussion as of January 2022 when the recordings end. But even though Project Texas's goal is to cordon off access to the most sensitive details about Americans that exist on TikTok's servers, one policy employee had doubts that it will actually prevent ByteDance's employees in China from accessing this data. Quote, it remains to be seen if at some point product and engineering can still figure out how to get access, because at the end of the day, it's their tools, they said in a September 2021 meeting. They built them all in China.
That is such an ignorant point to leave off on. Holy shit.
Also, totally possible that that is a quote on the discussion topic of pen testing.
What?
Hmm?
Ugh.
What's up, Parkett?
I've just lost the plot. Don't mind me.
Yeah. Just like, honestly, think about that for a second. Like, it's their tools, they built them all in China. So maybe we didn't catch everything. Maybe like the Chinese people who built these tools are going to do a better job of finding the errors.
Yeah,
Like,
and his
this is a quote from September 2021. It remains to be seen if at some point product and engineering can still figure out how to get access. Like product and engineering sounds like the department where you'd have the people whose job is figure out if Project Texas is working. And September 2021 sounds like around the time when you'd start checking to see if Project Texas. So like all of this is the beginning of the recordings. So all of the subsequent recordings are probably recordings of those engineers saying we found another gap.
right, because again, this is one of those things that it doesn't make sense. Like, did that last statement especially makes it seem like, well, if China designed it, they could always get into it. But I don't think they understand how hacking works. Like,
This
if,
is
they
such
were wanted to hack in it all the time, but if they're being responsible people, they have stuff in place that will like be like, oh, well, there's maybe been a security breach over here, or like your username password data to actually get into the system to try to make changes to data. It's going to be changed because there's some place that is storing people's credentials here on the US side that is going to be completely divorced from the China side. It doesn't make any sense.
Story, the degree to which this article is written in bad faith, I don't think it's reasonable to say that the author doesn't understand hacking. I think it's reasonable to say the author understands that their audience doesn't understand hacking.
Fair.
Because like this author has access to the tapes. Like they listened to them. They
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Like they told us that most of the discussions talking about China being able to access were explicitly in the context of pen testing. Let me see if I can find what that quote was exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yagami spelled backwards states that I don't understand anything about tech or hacking, and to me, it's clearly biased, and it's basically like that too. So, I my current job, I do tech stuff, and I try to explain to people. Um, I use banking a lot as an example here. Like, so if you have a username and password for bank A and a username and a password for bank B, um, you still need to be on bank A to sign in with that username and password. You can't use bank B's username and password to sign in. Now, yeah, at the end of the day, the banks can do business with each other, but they can't do business with each other unless you initiate a transaction to approve it. And even if you aren't there to approve the transaction because your information has been stolen, you still see the log of the transaction and you have a way to dispute that, and there's stuff in place. This article is that same kind of thing. So China is bank A and America is bank B, right? And like they all started over here, but this part is coming up over here. And eventually it's going to be that same thing. They can still do the same things, but they don't it's never going to be like this again because they unmeshed each other anyway.
Yeah, the quote was, "In the recordings, the vast majority of situations where China-based staff had access to U.S. user data were in service of Project Texas's aim to halt this data access."
Right.
Which, by the way, if anybody in the audience doesn't know what I mean by pen testing, it's short for penetration testing, and it's a basic like part of security development is having somebody try and break your security so that you can find the flaws and fix them.
Okay, and like thank you for defining that too, because I wasn't sure if it was one of those situations where I just wasn't understanding the word, but like
Mm.
felt I was on the same page from
Mm.
context alone, but I've never heard anybody say it that way.
Mm. But yeah, no, it's a very normal like it's standard practice in cybersecurity
Mhm,
and in any security
mhm,
that when you
mhm,
have a really important security project, you hire
mhm,
someone to try and break into it.
mhm.
Having China-based staff regularly testing to see whether they had succeeded in closing whether Project Texas had succeeded in closing out the data, that is proof that they are taking the job seriously.
Exactly.
This is an embarrassingly and disgustingly misleading article.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps we should also take note of the author's name, so that just in case we see more articles from them, we know to take it with a grain of salt. Okay. Because yeah, so much of that article was a lot of nothing.
Here's some of her articles. Leaked audio from 80 internal TikTok meetings shows that U.S. user data has been repeatedly accessed from China for security testing purposes. Democrats want to stop Google's location data from being used against people who get abortions. Seems like a good thing. In post-Roe America, Googling abortion could put you at risk. Here's how to protect yourself. She didn't write that one. She may have contributed. Who said it? Guess which celebs and politicians are all about crypto and which can't stand it. TikTok famous doctors are getting into NFTs and it's a mess. Toxic pro-eating disorder accounts on Instagram could be reaching nearly 20 million users, a report says. Political campaigns are facing risks with crypto donations on Coinbase and BitPay. TikTok's parent ByteDance made fake accounts with content scraped from Instagram and Snapchat, former employees say. Inside Project Texas, TikTok's big answer to U.S. lawmakers China's TikTok's big answer. Inside Project Texas, TikTok's big answer to U.S. lawmakers China fears. TikTok is rebuilding its systems to keep U.S. User data in the U.S. and putting new U.S.-based team in control. But for now, that team reports to executives in China.
Yeah, so it sounds like that 4-month-old. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, like, yeah, that's where the fucking executives are.
Yeah. That also just, it makes it seem, obviously I don't want to go look at that article, especially not after the one, but if this article here and the one that we read today are basically the same.
Probably. Because the article we read today was entirely about, like, late 2021 into the very beginning of 2022. This article is from 4 months ago, so both take place after.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious whether, like, let's see, Project Texas, For You page, spokesperson committed safety, USTS, CFIUS, CCP, Biden administration. Interviews with 19 current and former TikTok employees show ByteDance's control over TikTok is not merely structural. Employee accounts portray the companies as sometimes so closely entwined that it's unclear where TikTok stops and ByteDance begins. Some workers described instances where senior leadership decisions were made by unknown actors in Beijing. Others said their managers handed down key product decisions after they had talked to Beijing. One employee described hesitation after being asked to enter a sensitive information into a .cn domain. Two others said they'd occasionally been tasked to work with other ByteDance products, though their employment agreement was with TikTok. Others noted the opacity of the company's org chart. 10 employees who spoke to BuzzFeed News did not know the identities of the people that their managers or their managers' managers reported to. Who the fuck knows their boss's name?
Yeah.
Story says, ooh, working long distance with people you don't know the name of. Something that happens all the time. Okay, like, it's not a wildly implausible scenario that many people know their boss's name. It is also not a wildly implausible scenario that half of the 19 people you interviewed didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever known my boss's name. Like, I know I've been in jobs where I learned their name. I have never been in a job where I stored that information.
And then it's also like it really needs to be like if it's relevant to you. Like
Mhm.
I have known the names for like the chain of leadership or whatnot that I'm under, but not
Yeah, like
much
when
more
I've
beyond
worked retail, it's like I'm not fucking trying to get promoted, so I don't need to
that.
know the district manager's name.
Mhm. And it's like for the majority of the companies that I've worked for, because they are relatively small, that's why it was easy to know. But then for the couple of companies that I worked for that were really big, I have no idea beyond the district manager. Why would I ever need to know that?
Mhm.
So anyway,
We got 3 minutes left.
all right.
This was a fun stream. Making
Yeah, it
fun of
was
shitty
good.
journalism is fun. And we learned a lot of really great things about how
We did.
effectively TikTok is working out their data security issues.
Hmm. But yeah, but phrased in a bad way. Like, oh, look, they're testing to make sure you can't hack. What a bunch of jackasses. Highly sus.
Mhm.
Oh, goodness.
All right, I'm gonna call the stream here because we don't have more
Yes.
stuff to say. But I'm gonna be putting this up on YouTube soon, and I'm gonna suggest in chat that people come and watch it because it's funny how bad the BuzzFeed article is.
So bad. So
All right.
bad.
Good night, everybody.